Hey y'all, and welcome to PolitiBrawl. My name is Brian, and JD Vance refuses to let Wolf Blitzer bully him on any level, particularly when the question is this ridiculous. Let's dive in.
So you don't think this was a fair trial at all?
No, Wolf, I do not think it was a fair trial at all. And more importantly, again, everybody's focusing on Donald Trump. Understandably,
well, he's convicted now.
Understandably, but the principle that we're establishing applies across our politics. We're basically saying that if you don't like the outcome of an election or you don't like how an election is about to transpire, you can try to throw your opponent in jail. Wolf, the entire predicate here is a paperwork
organized
violation.
by Biden. This was a trial organized by New York City, the district attorney in Manhattan.
After the number 3 person in the Biden Department of Justice joined that prosecutor's office and then goes after Biden's political opponent, this absolutely is connected to Joe Biden, Wolf. Beyond that, you had Robert De Niro showing up at a Biden campaign rally on the day of jury instructions. This is politics written all over it.
Do you agree with Trump with what he just said? Because this jumped out at me. I thought it was obnoxious when he said, we're living in a fascist state. Is the United States a fascist state?
Wolf, I served in Iraq in the United States Marine Corps. I have multiple family members.
Were you
who served
outraged
our
when he
country.
said that, when Trump said that?
I am outraged at this entire proceeding,
but are you
Wolf, not at
that
Donald Trump's criticism of it.
Trump is calling the United States of America, the greatest country in the world, a fascist state. Are you okay with that?
After the President of the United States uses the power of the courts and his power as president to throw his opponents in jail, I think this is disgraceful. I don't care what you call it, Wolf.
Trump is disgraceful? Is that what you're saying?
I think this proceeding, this legal proceeding, is disgraceful.
But
Wolf.
what about
And
Trump calling our country a fascist state?
They're trying to throw him in prison for a paperwork violation, Wolf.
By his peers.
After the judge gave those jury biased instructions, after that judge donated to Donald Trump's political opponent, of course he's going to be frustrated, and he has every right to be. I don't care what you call this, but this is not the America that I know and love. Why aren't we talking about inflation, Wolf? Why aren't we talking about Biden's wide open southern border?
We're talking about
this entire trial
Trump,
was cooked up to distract from Joe Biden's failures.
With all due respect, we're talking about this because this is the first president or former president in American history to be convicted of felonies.
So let's talk about precedents. He's convicted of a literal paperwork violation.
That is the predicate. 34 felonies.
All of them paperwork violations. Rule a single paperwork violation, and they drew 34 felonies out. That should really bother you, whether you're a Democrat or Republican. Now let's talk about precedents. 6 years ago, Hillary Clinton paid $113,000 that was misclassified as a legal expense. That's the exact same thing that Donald Trump is accused of. Hillary Clinton got a slap on the wrist and a fine from the FEC. Donald Trump has had 34 felony indictments. It's so obvious that this is about politics, Wolf. And I understand the questions here, but if we allow this to continue, we are going to wake up in a banana republic where we try to throw people in jail instead of winning an argument in our politics.
Let me read
That's
to
not
you.
what I want. I don't think it's what you want either.
Attaboy, JD. Attaboy. You take it to Wolf Blitzer, who used to be one of my favorite journalists, and now he's just scraping the bottom of the barrel. This is the worst I think I've ever seen Wolf Blitzer here. Because if you want to talk about presidential crimes, okay. George Washington, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, and James Monroe were all guilty of high treason against the Crown of England. Also, don't forget that the reason that Andrew Jackson was so angry all the time was because he saw his brother get slaughtered by the British and even had scars on his hand where a British officer beat him mercilessly with his saber. Okay? Then let's talk about some more modern crimes. Let's talk about Iran-Contra. Why don't we bring up, lying to Congress about what you did in the White House, Bill Clinton? How about the Watergate scandal? Let's talk about some presidential crimes here, because if you want to talk about Donald Trump as a private citizen who's bought Mar-a-Lago for a certain amount of money, and then magically down the road, some judge plucks out a number from his rear end and says that, oh, Mar-a-Lago's actually worth this. You've been lying on your taxes. That isn't just a load of hogwash. That is the worst thing you can tell any group of investors at any certain point in time. For instance, this is a Manhattan district attorney here, okay? This is taking place in the court of Manhattan. You know what also is there? Wall Street, and quite literally the gold reserves of the majority of the world. Okay? You would think that a judge in this area would actually understand the point of value, and instead, he throws all of that precedent out. He throws all that goodwill out. He throws all of that idea of rule of law just to go after Donald Trump. So yeah, when it comes to banana republics and fascist dictatorships, going after your political opponents, silencing them wherever you can, like, say, removing them from Twitter and then never allowing them back, at least not until Elon Musk bought it. Then, let's see, what are some other ways you can really go after your political opponents? Oh, I know. You can get the CIA and FBI to pressure Silicon Valley to bury certain stories about your son who has been gallivanting all over the world, laundering your money, and then buying influence while using your name. Like, for instance, what Joe Biden and Hunter Biden did back when he was the vice president of the United States. So maybe we could start talking about that kind of corruption, but we weren't allowed to in 2020 because, again, the FBI and CIA put pressure on Silicon Valley to literally bury a story. That sounds a little bit banana republic-y to me, borderline fascistic, if you will. So, when it comes to the investment side, I would rather quote Kevin O'Leary for this because I think this was the moment where he got fully radicalized. O'Leary claimed that existing businesses and new ventures are going to different states such as Texas and Florida, based on the current ruling of this Manhattan judge. So they've got lots of work to do to find themselves of getting out of this situation. This has occurred all post unspecified virus of unknown origin, winner states versus loser states. And I'll skip a little bit to go on. We're very worried. Every investor is worried because where is the victim? Who lost the money? Is this some arbitrary decision a judge made? O'Leary responded. This policy, what does this say about the bar? About the legal bar in New York? Are they going to question this judge? What is this? This decision by this judge quite literally threw to the wind the whole point and purpose of any investor who owns a bit of property and wants to sell it, and to any buyer who then buys said property. So this judge thought that the best way to get Trump was on a very weird legal matter, kind of like going after Al Capone for tax evasion. Granted, it didn't really pay for all of his crimes, but it worked. Except in this case, Donald Trump has not committed any real crime. This was an arbitrary decision by a judge, and Wolf Blitzer is out there trying to get JD Vance to admit to something absolutely ridiculous, that the United States is a fascist state. At the time, under Joe Biden, I would not argue that it was fascistic in any means by the stretch of the imagination, but it was acting like a banana republic. This is not good for the idea of freedom. This is not good for the hope of a free press. That we had at one time a sitting president whose number 3 man in the Department of Justice magically quit their job, moved to New York State in order to work on this case. And then what this case did is it threw to the wind any potential investing group or individual who wants to buy property, because now there is now legal precedent for a judge to magically pluck out this number out of thin air or even worse places where the sun don't shine, and then use that as legal precedent moving forward. That is terrible for any nation of laws. And ultimately, JD Vance does a great job here against Wolf Blitzer, who's doing his best to be as relevant as possible, because apparently being objective doesn't matter in the modern day and age when it comes to any journalistic integrity. Wolf Blitzer basically destroyed his own career here, because instead of trying to understand why JD Vance would ally himself and be the running mate for Donald Trump, even though he is a 34-time convicted felon, and let him speak on the matter, all he did was deflect, annoy, and obfuscate reality, all in an attempt to make CNN viewers feel better about themselves. Shame on you, Wolf. I know this is a year old, but man, this is one of his lowest points in his entire career, and it's coming in the twilight of his career. Not a note you want to have as you're slowly riding into the sunset. Meanwhile, JD Vance is currently riding high in the saddle because he knows how to deal with media and he knows how to not fall into these ridiculous pitfalls when it's set up by someone who is now as shady as Wolf Blitzer. Folks, my name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed that segment here on PolitiBrawl. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one. And until then, y'all have a good one.